because we're going to talk about feelings. We're going to talk about emotional needs and core values. We're going to talk about something called nonviolent communication. I call it anti-butthead communication. Because what it does is, with this 4-step process that you'll learn, what it does is it teaches you, when you use the process, you amplify the opportunity for empathy across parties. And you can use nonviolent communication within and for yourself for the conflicting parts that have you misspending, not saving, screwing up your money problems, making more money problems. So that's what nonviolent communication is about. That's why I'm sharing it with you. If this doesn't sound interesting to you, you're not a good fit for my coaching. I'm not forcing people to do processes all the time. This is one, though, I'm going to want you to learn about what your emotions are, what your feelings are named, what you would name them, and how they relate to your needs and core values. And if you don't do that, there's plenty of other people that will tell you what to do with your money. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. I'm here to help you to develop self-awareness. And through self-awareness, then these strategies and tools and services that are available around finance become far more useful to you. So that's what I'm doing here. So all right, let's get into it. I'm going to show you a spreadsheet, which, well, you see it. Hold on, it's right here. Hold on. All right, so welcome to the communication portion of this. And of course, this is the spreadsheet that I mentioned. Anti-butthead communication, to help you to stop sounding like a butthead, also to help you to stop perceiving your partner as a butthead. Really just a fun way of introducing some self-care. Also a model for amplifying communication which is rooted in empathy and, of course, a compassion, so that you can view the statements and understanding the behavior of your partner with compassion and treat yourself with compassion. This helps with all of this. This was going to help you to develop a greater sense of self-awareness, which is so important in spending and saving habits, which is why I've learned to teach people about this. When working with me as a client and coach relationship, I'm not going to focus on this all the time. I'm going to bring it back occasionally when appropriate. And I wanted to make this available so that people could do this for themselves. Also, this is a good indication of what I'm interested in helping you with. So if you're trying to be financially independent, retire early, the FIRE movement, that's not really what I'm doing here. I'm not a financial advisor, and I think there's a lot of room for conversation around investing. To me, all of those strategies are worthless unless I'm very clear about who I am, what I want, what experience I'm going to have. I could be doing that. There are many people actually who achieved their FIRE, who retired in their mid-30s or early 40s or something, and then committed suicide or were significantly depressed. It doesn't always have to be that way, obviously. And so it's great, I think, if you can really take your life and do something with your life that allows you to really be fulfilled. And so this is for people that are seeking authentic fulfillment. Anyway, generally that involves having healthy relationships, and this process is a very clean, clear way of helping you to filter the process of communication and clarify what it is that you're experiencing and what you're needing so that you can remove the emotional violence that may occur to really even limit literal violence. Anti-butthead communication is based on nonviolent communication. You can look into that. I encourage you to Google it and or go to YouTube and find videos of Marshall Rosenberg. There are many videos of Marshall Rosenberg describing and answering questions, about nonviolent communication, doing workshops, and so on and so forth. There are many books written by him. And so anyway, here's the process. It starts with observation. That means non-judgment observation. So you're not saying, for instance, you overspent this month. That's your evaluation. Overspent is my opinion, my judgment, my evaluation. The observation would be, for instance, we had an agreement that we would spend XYZ amount of money, but you spent $200 more than that. That's an actual observation. We had an agreement, $200 more. Those are facts. You could sort of take a picture of it. It's not my evaluation of that picture. It's these things literally happened. So it's an observation, not a judgment, not an evaluation, observation. The next thing is feeling, not thoughts, but feelings. So I feel concerned is the example here. You'll see on the tab that's next, I'm going to actually list out, I've got the 6 basic emotions that are recognized in the field of psychology. I think this really helps to clarify and to create even better self-awareness by recognizing what those internal structures are, what the thought processes are, what those emotions are. As we connect those to these names of these definitions of different feelings or emotions, we end up creating more clarity around how that relates to what our needs and values actually are. So this is the way the process goes: observation, feeling, need. So for instance, I'm going to say, you overspent by $200 and I feel concerned, and my concern arises from a need for financial stability. I have a need for stability. So my request would be, would you be open to sitting down together and reviewing and adjusting the budget? Or would you be open to sitting down and exploring what your emotions and needs are around your spending habits? So here's a cheat sheet right here in the beginning of this spreadsheet for you. And here's the actual tab that will help you to have this conversation. So for instance, in the first column here, you've got expense types. This doesn't need a lot of description. There are categories of expense types. I want you to become familiar with this stuff because this is helpful in tracking what your spending is. And so it's here. This is actually a little bit overkill. It's not totally necessary, but I decided to include it. Anyway, those are the expense categories. Here's the definitions of those expense categories. The actual purchase was a zombie survival kit. This is kind of a fun example because it doesn't cleanly fit into any one of these expense categories. So there's some thought process going on there. You're going to be identifying and observing. And actually, you might even call that evaluation. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to use this example. We want to separate that kind of deciding from this other kind of deciding where I'm recognizing the relationship between my emotions, needs, and values. I want to be able to communicate about my emotions, needs, and values to amplify compassion and empathy with my partner. And by actually separating, by labeling, by naming these different expense types and so forth, this allows me to actually create a process, a method for communicating that, again, that makes that communication clean and clear and allows me to be fully accountable to what my experience is, what my emotions, what my needs are, what my values are all about, right? So you can do the same. That's the point here. When you do this, you're able to identify really what you've observed, what actually happened, what your emotions are, what your response is to what's happened. That response is based on either having your needs met or not, having your standards met or not, having your values satisfied or not. It's either a negative emotion or a positive emotion. There are different names for these different types of negative and positive emotions, and those are going to relate to either having your needs met or not, having your standards met or not. having your values satisfied or not. That's what we're trying to actually create a system here so that you can communicate, so that you're not blaming, so that you're not manipulating, so that you're not, so that you can own and identify in a creative way how to have your needs and values met. Because what might happen here is there might be an opportunity for pivoting and having your need or value met in some other way. So here's an example that I've got here for a Yorkie puppy. A real life example, I actually own Yorkies. my partner, my wife, wants to buy another Yorkie, and that purchase would be approximately $4,500. My immediate response to that is disgust. Why am I disgusted? It's a negative response because I'm not having a certain need met. Well, significance and validation, I'm going to call that one. Because really, I would like to have more influence over the situation. First of all, where $4,500 is going. Also, the capacity for taking care of a new puppy is somewhat limited. I'd like to be able to do other things like make videos and play my electric guitar and do other things that allow me to essentially be validated on my own home. I have to make a sacrifice in some respect, time and energy and attention that would go toward the puppy. It would belong to proper care of a puppy. So in that respect, my sense of significance and validation is being validated. I think this is a very visceral example. And, to some of you might be laughing about this. This is a little bit cringy in some respect. These aren't intense emotions. I am calm. I'm even stoic about it. And we have an open discussion. We sat on the couch and laughed about things. And I don't even think I had to say all of this. There's other ways to say it without using the word disgust or validation, for instance. This allows me to outline it so that I can have an option, so that I can be creative about getting my needs met. So the way the conversations might come out actually is I'd say, for instance, that I don't like it. I'm concerned because my need. I don't think I really want to spend too much time. I don't want to make a sacrifice for the puppy. And my values is typically how we communicate this stuff. Also, we've talked about this before. I thought we already had an agreement. I want my house to be clean. So I'm listing out my values and so forth, right? So I'd like to talk with you about this a little further. And also what would help me is if we got really clear about what our longer term goals are. And I started talking about doing some traveling, for instance. I started talking about other things like money that might be spent in the many years in the future. We talked a little bit about retirement and how this money could grow. I went there. So anyway, this is an example of how this all works. On this last page, this third tab at least, there is a hierarchy of values. So what's happened here is I put these words in here, and I want to give you an example. I'm going to go ahead and write something else in. Let's say there's another purchase that I have feelings about. I don't have to list you can see there's only 10 places here because at the end of the month, I'm going to use this spreadsheet to focus on the areas where I've overspent and I want to get clear with myself. I want to create deeper self-awareness and have the conversation with myself and or with my partner about those areas where I'm concerned. And so there's some confusion, some resentment, some anger possibly, or this could also be used as a way of projecting. So for instance, I would like to spend more money. Let's use this example. I want to go to Seattle. My mom and sister live in Seattle. And I don't know, what's this going to cost? This is probably going to be $1,500. That seems a bit high. I'll have to do a little homework. I'm just going to put 25. If we stay in a hotel, we're probably going to drive. Gosh, we could do it for less than that. I bet, let's call it 800 for now. That's my best guess at this moment. I need to do more research. I've got to decide how many days we're going to go and so forth too. It's going to cost me about $800. In fact, I might take some time away from work. And for that reason, maybe a little more makes more sense. I'm just walking you through how the decision about the dollar amount could come about. For right now, my intuition says 800 is close enough. This is clearly a travel expense. And why do I want this? Well, I expect to be happy by seeing my mom. I'm happy because a certain need is met. Connection and intimacy. My mom and my sister both live in the area around Seattle. And what other values do I have there? Well, family. Let's call family a value. And I want to bring my daughter up there so that she can ride my mom's horses. My mom has several horses, and she likes to ride horses here where I live. But why don't we go and ride mom's horses? There's a particular value around that. I'm just going to call it horses, just to give a good example. I would actually generally, personally think more about this and relate it to kind of a more general sense of a real value. But horses are an actual value in my family, with my sister, not my sister, definitely not my sister. She doesn't like horses. But my daughter and I do, and certainly my mom obviously does. She owns many, or several at least. Okay, so what else? Let's see. Adventure. By the way, that's actually listed as a need here, but I wouldn't call that the primary need for doing this. So it can be listed as a value. That's totally fine. Now that I've written that stuff in there, it populates onto this other page. I've gone to the third tab now, hierarchy of values, and you can see down here, Seattle, visit Seattle. I just wrote that in there. It populated here because of that. This is something from a previous example. Family, horses, adventure. You can see those things populate. And I want to actually list these in order, though, which is the most important thing. I think I want to switch this. I think now that I look at this, if I ask myself the question, if I could only have one of these values, which one would I pick? Which is the most important thing? If I could only have one, which one would I pick? Well, family. I want family more than I want adventure. And so I want family more than I want horses in my life. Okay, so family ends up being number one. Now that I've chosen family, of the remaining two, still horses and adventure exist there. Well, if I could have adventure but not horses, would I take it? Or would I want horses but no adventure? No, they've got to go in this order. I want adventure and then horses in that order. That's how this works for me. I bet my mom would flip-flop those two. She might even put horses above family. Anyway, that's how hierarchy of values goes. They're very intrinsic. It's all about your experience in life. Values can change. They tend to be pretty stable. They're highly connected to your motivations and your identity of yourself, who you are for yourself and in the world. And so they become really, they're the foundation of our belief systems. We believe the things we believe because of the values that are associated with those things, for instance. The word value and beliefs actually can be used interchangeably in many contexts. And so this really helps to clarify. Once you've done this enough times, this really helps to clarify decision-making processes. So let's say I've done this, all of these. Let's just say I did all of them, just to give you an example. I've done a lot of work. And since I've done them all, I've done a lot of work. And maybe even done this a couple of months now. I've done several of these exercises now. What a person would find is it's not going to be totally random, a bunch of words. You're going to see the same things showing up over and over again. And as you make this hierarchy of value decision thing happen, this similar things are probably going to pop up to the top. Not every context, every purchase is going to have the same core value associated with it. And you'll also see that there's a correlation or a reoccurring trend where some core values end up being a major point of decision. And so as I do that, I become more connected with my internal thought processes, my emotions that are related to these things, the sensations in my body, the words and the internal dialogue that I have in my head, the tone and quality of that internal dialogue, the pictures that are mostly unconscious that flash through my mind quickly, the little videotapes and movies that I play out, those expectations, those memories, all that stuff is connected to these values. And as I do this process, because of the way that I'm comparing and evaluating and connecting them to real observations, to real emotions, those needs, those values, all that stuff, as that gets worked out, I develop more and more self-awareness. So now when I go to make a decision around, do I go to Seattle or not? I've been practicing this for a little while. It becomes really clear to me. I can very quickly, through some kind of an unconscious internal process, I sense into with my intuition, do I want to do it or not? And why is it important? Now I can have a strong sense about that and do it or not and feel good about it, and also communicate it with my partner in a clear and effective way. And that's the point of all this. So hopefully this is useful to you. Please make use of it. On YouTube, comment below, ask questions, talk about it. By all means, reach out to me. I'm happy to explain things. I like to be helpful. It's all useful. The spreadsheet is set up there so that you could self-reflect. Generally, people do this at the end of the month, maybe once a quarter. Whenever you need it, the spreadsheet is available there to recognize those areas where there was some problem, some confusion, some frustration, some resentment. It can be used for planning. It can be used for planning, reflecting at the end of the month, as I just said. Either way, we're identifying what it is, what's the observation, how I feel about it, or how they feel about it. You could use it either way. And what the needs are. We want to make this connection between the emotions and either satisfying or not having needs satisfied. What that emotion is, what that thing is. And by talking about this, by bringing these things to the surface, we enable a real accountable and custom fit approach to having, to making requests and creating strategies around meeting those needs. And then, of course, when I have my needs met, I have positive emotions. I feel satisfied, or I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. And so, again, the point of this is to create that self-awareness, to create that internal dialogue, to create a way of giving you a way of really connecting to what your core values are. This amplifies the ease and clarity of decision-making, amplifies who you are, will create more self-esteem in that respect. And all of this also creates more compassion for communication with other people. And so that's it for now for the Anti-Butthead Budgeting course. I'd love to hear your feedback. By all means, reach out to me by email. I'm at lifecoachlynch@gmail.com. Of course, you can click on the button there, Get Coaching, big old blue button. You can't miss that. And schedule a free consultation. And then also, if you're on YouTube, I'd love to hear what you think about nonviolent communication and this approach, whether or not you think this would help with your budgeting. By all means, click the bell, subscribe, share it with a friend. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We love engagement. All right, man. Peace.